Hello, once again, welcome back to my page. Glad to be back with you all. I kind of want to discuss something on, the premises of from a true Christian perspective, right? What you would think that all people should have who definitely envelope the lives of Christian, right? So when we look at how the world is shaped, from the dominance over other humans, whether it be slavery, feudalism, or even the form of capitalism that we're all under, we can shape a narrative that there's become an us versus them mindset, right? And through the beginning of time, whether you believe in God or not, man was never to rule over another man. But we were to have dominance over all that was less than him, right? So this means animal life, plant life, and all other non living things. And this wasn't even in a sense of uh, having an evil mindset about the way that I treated these things, the way that I dominated them, but one that cares for what was created with a sense of love, understanding that all things have a common purpose. Having a supply of something more than the next person, it doesn't necessarily imply that it was yours to begin with, right? But that you have utilized it from the same structure designed to benefit all human life. So as we as humans live a life that with hope provides sustenance and brings us some sort of integrity, that while we live, we can alter courses of life to one that ensures our survival upon it. And as the narrative goes, we all, at some point in our lives, leave all that we have accumulated and enter into an alternate universe designed to keep the living and those that have passed on separated. So, in essence, we're all designed at some point to die in our lives. Let's just cut it clear, right? The way we live, as so many believe, can effectively change the determination of the afterlife that we'll all become a part of. This is when you see so many who have gained so much during their life, they either grasp onto it, right? So that they'll still have it, or they will begin to, parse it out to ensure some sort of goodwill whenever going into the next. And one would think that all those during their, lifetimes of living would provide honestly to help for others. Yet in the world that we live in, so many are either about providing for their immediate family or all for themselves. And this is the problem that we face, right, as humans. Uh, Now, as Christians, we were given a shining star to portray our lives by. When we hear about the stories of Christ, even though in many cases he would have been entitled to have everything that the world had to offer, being that it was his to begin with, he humbled himself to the point of foregoing it while he walked this earth in human form. In order for him to understand what humans had to go through, as well as for us as humans to be able to follow his prime examples, he had to walk in our shoes. And this he had done with such precise methodology that so many people in the world, both yesterday and today, look at him right as their guide in order to live their lives today. One filled with love, empathy, and interest in those less than him, and the ability to find, even in ways when he was hated, to suppress that anger and yet show love. And this becomes it becomes a study all on its own, right? And these lessons were also being taught to the Hebrews during the times of the Old Testament as well. Methods to use in order to demonstrate kindness, love, the ability to show humanistic traits, even those of empathy, by humbling myself and doing for others, you know, uh, through leaving supply for those who were poor, giving those less fortunate the ability to pull themselves up right by their own bootstraps, and showing empathy to someone who may even look a little bit different than you, to showing true virtue to those who were foreigners. Such traits were both taught and demonstrated because it showed the prime human attribute, which at the end result is love. Christ not only gave up his life to see this fulfillment, but also walked in our shoes to demonstrate perfect human ways of life. And he lived in a way for us to see past all of the burdens that are attached to this life and develop skills to help one another see this personal goal realized, right? Now, the church and it is basically the collection of those under Christ, for those who don't know, or they're the body of Christ. However, the church has also its rules to play. And as I spoke on Christ and his ability to look outside of his family net and, friendships developed with the other disciples that are around him, he also demonstrated love to all those who were far from being loved, such as the sinners. Thus, doing this, he also included them into a highly desired world that, whether they realized it or not, they would begin to adjust their lives into one filled with the same goal, to do what was done to them. And we live our lives in such a way that sometimes alienates us from others because there seems to be so much hurt and disappointment that we don't wish to bear it ourselves. We don't want to take part of it, right? And so many of us allow this negativity to engulf them to the point that they too become just what they wish they would have never became. And by us as humans opening up from a much wider perspective, not just family first, is one that demonstrates the willingness to look past the barriers, right? Become more inclusive to all. Allowing myself to forgo such pains and humiliations in order to effectively help someone who may have had it a little bit more rough, replicating those same attributes that I might have, or someone who is, more grasped in that knowledge. Even amongst the perspective of living as a Christian, this doesn't seclude me from the world. So while I live, my goal is to demonstrate what was shown to me. And this comes through the one who did it perfectly, which is Christ. So no longer should we wish to live a life of bloodshed, hatred, greed, and envy, but one that envelopes all the good that life has to offer. We are in the anguish we developed ourselves worldwide because of the hurt, disappointment, seclusion, or even sense of entitlement we've seen to be subjected to. And this is where we find ourselves today. There are some men and women who make so much money that they can't bear the thought of losing it. So they hide it in ways that they don't have to share it. And then there are other people who maybe have so little that they decide that in order to have, they must take from those who do. We live in a society that demands justice from those who wronged us without the idea of forgiveness. We live in bloodshed because of the stubbornness of nations and humans to become more humanistic. Looking outside of the box means looking at alternative ways to find a better and much more sustaining result. How can we as humans think outside the box, right? Well, exiting a mindset that life is consisted of those close to me, holding on to a selfish attitude and becoming one who can do for others as he would like done for himself. This is ultimately the golden rule. Treat others as I would like to be treated. If I know and understand that I want the best out of life, I want love, I want to not be able to struggle, I want to become the best person that I can be before I leave this life, then maybe I should wish the same for others to ensure that we all can benefit off of what this world has to offer. We as humans are never designed to be alone. We were never designed it. We are social creatures, with the understanding that one day we will leave this reality called life. If I do for others, right, thinking outside the box, how much more gratifying would my life be? If we were all able to have and share the wealth given on this green earth, how much more prosperous will we be? How many less killings, bloodshed, and violence will take place? How much more knowledge and triumphs will we possess as a whole If we just for once look past our differences and come to a conclusion to simply just love one another. All right? If we can step aside ourselves and enter into the mindset of the next person, how much more developed as a world will we be? So much more will be accomplished because we decided to embody a style of life that gives us an advantage over the animals and over the plants and over all the other non living things. And working together instead of against each other, right? Hurting our families, killing our youth, hating those who don't look like you or I. All these things can be squashed simply by living your life as one that generates true meaning. We are all humans. We're cut from the same cloth. And as we can rest assured with the virus that is going on this very instant, that's plaguing our population right now, if we don't help ourselves with the basic concepts of foregoing my gain and loving humanity, then we will cease to exist. Thus, we should really be practicing more than ever, right? Treating others how I would like to be treated. This must be realized on a much greater stance than what we prescribe now. It isn't just about the church that Christ taught, right? But saving those outside of it. It makes so much sense. Saving those outside of it as well, so that we could become one entire huge family in this so-called life that we're all intertwined in, right? He meant for us to become one. That's what was designed for this world to be. And I suppose, what I want to share is like, even with Christ, that we should demonstrate those attributes of Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr., right? Showing basic human goodness so that in years to come, we'll see how much better the world thrived because of it. And for those who want to hold on to it, right, adhering to this concept, or not adhering to it, right, so many more are going to die. So many more will be angry. So many will hate and despise one another. And this world, ultimately, now that we live here, it's going to suffer. So I think at the end of the day, we have to begin to pull together. We have to work together for a common purpose. We have to do things for one another. Stop being so subjected to living a certain way that excludes this person or that person. Become more inclusive, become more loving, become more caring, help one another, do things for one another, share with one another. And we'll start to see a turnaround that, we never thought could possibly happen. I thank you for your time, and hopefully if you have any thoughts, leave it in the comment section, and, we can kind of discuss it further. But until then, I'm out.